6 o'clock. So we will begin the October 16th, 2023 study session. Beginning with Andy.
Okay, Mayor and Council, I'm here to present information on the FY25 hotel motel tax distribution. This is going to be fairly brief. I don't think there's going to be a lot of discussion on this. As you recall, last year we had an application process which we had to follow in the year before. And we had some recommendations after that. One was to delay the process until later in the budget process. And normally it would occur now, and then we receive applications December 1st. Council had agreed to delay it later in the process. But I'm here to present possible different way of handling it, moving forward with FY25 if you're interested. I don't think any firm decision needs to be made tonight, but maybe later on in the budget process, we'll need to make that decision. So as you recall, the city receives about $225,000 in hotel motel tax revenue. You can see over the last few years, it's steadily grown about $50,000 a year. I don't anticipate it going much more than $225,000 unless we get an additional hotel. We've been doing pretty good as far as hotel motel stays and everything, but we haven't seen a new one yet. There is possible one in the future, but I don't see it going much above 225,000. It'd be great if it did. Anyway, Park and Rec distribution out of the 225,000 is 25,000. Bravo and CBB both get 2/7 of that distribution. Total distribution of 225,000, which is 64,256, and that leaves for the civic organization request about 71,500. So each year we send out the application and we receive requests, and mainly it's the same organizations that make these requests. As you know, they have to be a 501c3 organization, a nonprofit organization with an economic development purpose. Any amount over 71,500 has to need to be covered by reserves. And last year, the council agreed to wait, as I mentioned, later in the budget process for that application process. And as you know, as we go into this budget year for FY25, we're looking at possible tight revenue situation with House File 718 as far as property tax revenues. That we won't know until we get later into the when we receive the valuations from the county come January 1st. So FY24 distribution, you can see how what the council had decided for FY24 for the current year for the distribution. The only one there that was a one-time distribution as far as the current year and possibly going into FY25 was the WCLI County Fairground Playground distribution. And so as we look at FY25, some few things that the council may want to consider moving forward is to suspend the application process for FY25 and keep the same distribution that we had for FY24, since it is basically the same organizations that make those requests. As you recall, previously the chamber was part of those requests, but the council had decided to move those out of the hotel motel revenue distribution and have that as a standalone 50,000 distribution. So some of the options for the additional revenue, we could hold it in general administration fund and help with that distribution for the chamber. It would add 12,500 for that distribution, also to help out with the distribution that the council or the city makes every year to WCDC. And another option would be to add it to the Park and Rec distribution or other requests that might come later on in the budget process. So I'll leave it that with the council. If you had any questions on the hotel motel tax revenue distribution coming up for FY25 or any thoughts on that?
I I don't know if I think we want to, maybe we do, I don't know, but I'm not necessarily in support of suspending the application. I would like to see how the dollars were used.
Right.
For like the organ, so I still, and I know they do something, but I don't know what Keep Indianola Beautiful does for $6,000 a year. I know last year they didn't put an application in initially, so I guess I would like to see what they're giving back with that money.
I think what we're gonna try to do moving forward as we get into December, January is try to reach out to those organizations and have them come in and do a report. As part of the application process, we did have them agree that they were going to report on how they were using those dollars
I
for FY
think,
24.
I think there's an opportunity for a couple other organizations in the community that possibly we could help out.
Can you go back to the slide that had what civic organizations, please?
Okay, so you make that a little bit bigger, like split screen.
I didn't I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was up there too. My bad. There you go.
Go, thank you.
What, and if we do an application, it's due December, correct?
Well, that's how we did it previously.
Yeah. Okay,
We could do it, say in February and then have it due March 1st or something like that, or, you know,
Okay.
we know the set amount. That's gonna
Right.
be in our budget, how much we're gonna be distributing. As far as how that's gonna be distributed, that doesn't need to be
right. I like, the only
decided right
reason,
away.
Yeah.
That can be decided later in the
Okay.
budget process.
the only reason I was asking was I think that'd be something that we as the full, I mean, with just having the three of us here, four of us here, I think it'd be nice if we could have that conversation amongst everybody. I mean, I'm assuming we can get this sent out to them, so the other ones that aren't here will be able to see it, but I just, they're part of this anyway, but I think that would be a good conversation, because I could go either way. I mean, I'm all about if we want to open it up, but like I said, okay with either way, so I'd have to think about that.
This is
I-
basically just to get that out there and maybe
Yeah.
think about how we're going to be moving forward.
Right.
Because we know that we're probably going to be dealing with the effects of House File 718.
Right.
Plus we have some ideas about some new things for the city moving forward.
Send this to all of us.
That's all I have.
So, just a question, Andy, before you leave. So you're gonna bring this back to us then, or we start this process when did we do this last year again?
Last year, we sent out the applications about in November, due
Okay.
December 1st. And then we had the discussion in December, and then it went into January and February.
But did those only go to the people who had previously given money to?
Correct.
So
the
it,
new requests were later, didn't they?
huh?
Did we do a couple of new requests?
There was a couple of new
The
ones, the
merchants.
downtown merchants
Yeah.
were new. So if there was somebody, the only ones I know to send them out to is the one, if they made a previous request. So that's who I got contact information. If there was a possible new one, if we weren't going to suspend the process and there was going to be a new one, I'd have to have contact information for that organization.
And I think the key too is we got to remember, we want to keep it economic development geared too.
Right.
So, and there's a lot of organizations that need funds, but I just assume kind of keep it towards the economic development.
The intent.
Yeah. That's right. Probably has to be that way, doesn't it? Probably.
Yep. Okay,
Thank you.
that's all I got.
John, discussion regarding parking around the square. Keith, are you leading this one? Lucky you. This has obviously been an ongoing conversation. The Board of Supervisors have said that they will support us if we look at a parking restriction in regards to time. So give it to you, Ben.
Well, we had this discussion, this is really revisiting an old presentation that was given back in June. Because at that time, we were very concerned about the parking on the square and wanting to dial up the pressure when it comes to parking on the square slowly. We put together a task force at the mayor's direction, which included representation from the county, from the chamber, from the downtown merchants and the downtown commission, as well as city staff members. And the issue that we really are running into is that we want to be business friendly, which means we want to invite patrons to the square. But when we put, that's a balance on one side. If parking's not available, then that makes it hard for the patrons to utilize those businesses. On the other hand, if we make it so tough, then we scare away any business patrons that might be coming to the square anyway. And then we have to remember that the city, county, and state employees are also themselves patrons of the square. It's really not so much the parking as it is the turnover of the parking that's causing a concern, because you have a typical parking spot will turn over 30 times in a day, and if one car is parked there all day long, then that is really impactful to that business for which they are parked. We tried to take on different ideas along the way. Part of that was to put in directional signing to our parking lots. We also put in business patron only parking signs on the outsides of the square. That actually was an idea of Supervisor Heater. And we've some of the other things that we've done is we put, like I said, the public parking signs on all of the available lots. Some of the lots, such as I believe the Presbyterian Church and others, maybe were as marked as well as they could have been, and people didn't maybe realize that those were public parking spots. Of course, we haven't had a full year where we have had the new parking lots open and available. The south has just opened about a month ago. The north alley is just opened this past Friday. We're working on the west parking right now, and so there's some infrastructure issues going on, but we intend to have that parking lot open on the west throughout the winter. Some of it may be in gravel, but it will be open. And then, of course, it'll be taken down once the work goes on next spring and the west side. And at that time, we've entered into talks with Methodist Church about utilizing some of their parking spaces. Of course, we acquired the Regions Bank parking lot. We had some issues trying to get that opened. The hallway opened up earlier. We recognized we needed to bring fiber in. IMU is very gracious in working with us on bringing fiber into that building. But we have an environmental analysis going on to make sure that it's a healthy enough environment in the basement for some of the work that needs to be done on the technology side to put the doors in to make them open earlier and close later. But people are still invited to utilize the east parking lot in support of the square. I know that the county has talked to their employees repeatedly, invited them to park on the east side or at their parking lot over at the administration building. They've changed their court parking instructions so that when they have people who are witnesses or somebody who's being prosecuted, that they're asked to park in designated lots. We're trying to create more awareness. As far as our employees, I know our employees have been asked to park more into the city's parking lot and not in the east parking lot, so that it can open the east parking lot for the county and the city, county and the state employees that are there, as well as the business patrons for the square. We haven't yet put the videos together that we talked about, kind of encouraging people. Brian, I know Chief Shear volunteered to run a 0.25K marathon from the parking lot to the Justice Center, Rocky pose and whatnot, trying to illustrate that it's actually further to walk and get a gallon of milk at Walmart from the Walmart parking lot than it is to walk around the building and get down the square and patronize it. With that said, I think we have repeat vendors as far as the county and state employees are concerned. And that is, as they have been approached to not park in the square. In some cases, they have bowed their backs and said, basically they're taxpayers too. They shop too. They can park where they want. The state has issued a letter to the county saying this is not a county issue. Stop encouraging us not to park where we can park anywhere we want. This is not a county issue, it's a city issue. the county's fed up and they feel like that the city should take a look at it. We've looked in the past about enforcement, 3-hour parking on the square. It really comes down to an enforcement issue and with changes at the US Supreme Court. Not allowing the chalking of tires because that's considered an invasion of privacy. We are trying to figure out other ways to enforce, to dial that up. Those enforcement things right off the bat jumps out as you could, on the one extreme, have meters. On the other extreme, you could just have somebody walking around and issuing tickets. Some kind of camera system or indicating system that, you know, kind of like at the airport, you pull in and it lets you know if a parking lot space is full or not. We put those in. Some of those come with heavy upfront costs. Others come with heavy long-term costs. Probably gonna be a combination of. Question is, how much do you want to ratchet it up? And how do we want to appear? Talk in public.
Have we had any additional input from the business owners recently on what we've currently done?
We've had some, there are some business owners that would like to see a parking enforcement, you know, a 3-hour parking. There are others that would be impacted by that, especially hair salons and whatnot, where somebody can be in a spa all day long.
I talked to both of them
And
and they both favorably said that it would be okay.
Charlie and I talked to one that was not in favor this past week.
Well, I know that one of them is
Okay.
in favor, so split, it's okay.
But again, it comes back to enforcement and how much of a priority it is for the council to put in whatever enforcement tools that we have, how that's perceived by the public, and to give Chief Shearer the tools he needs to do the job. As well.
So have we looked at the cost and probability of being able to hire a parking enforcement person?
So we have some initial preliminary costs of consolidating or creating a new position that will carry a part-time police, part-time community community development enforcement as far as inspection is concerned, and to a new community services control position. And you know that comes with a salary and a benefit package and the vehicle that would be needed to support that person. And that's a recurring cost. I think whatever we do, we're going to have someone out there actually issuing the tickets, preparing the cases for prosecution and putting them through. How easy it is, whether they're going around saying, okay, this is car parked here at this time, I saw this at this time, or if there's some kind of automated system, that's what makes it challenging.
Chief, have you talked to other cities about how they approach this?
Come on up. In fact, there's lots of chairs you can sit on.
Be more of a-
I mean,
Sorry, I drew you out of your
when
chair.
did the law change?
5 or 6 years
I mean,
ago.
because we just in 2020, we did have 3-hour parking. And then it was done away with.
Right,
No,
the ordinance was still in effect, but
We just suspended, it,
weren't-
right?
enforcing it because we couldn't chalk the tires because of the
Right.
Supreme Court ruling. So the ordinance was still around, but yes,
against
Councilmember Schroeder asked me to look at a couple cities and I did send her that information. I think one
Okay.
was Altoona. Pella, yes.
And Knoxville, I think.
Yes, thank you. You know my emails better than I do.
Yeah.
And for the life of me, I cannot remember.
Well, I was just down in Oskaloosa probably 2 weeks ago during a day, and they have 3-hour parking as well. And I was kind of curious how they enforce that. Maybe that,
Knoxville would be the only one that would be similar to ours, really. Because Pella doesn't have any, there's nothing in the middle.
yeah, Oskaloosa does.
What we have done though is both Ben and I think, talked with Amy Beatty and we do have a new ordinance written up to you guys what you want to do with it, but it gives us a little more leeway because under the old ordinance, if you move the car a half an inch, even within the parking spot, that resets the time. The new ordinance has verbiage in there about you cannot occupy the same space. So at least it gives us,
Ability to patrol it. To make sure they've moved.
I guess, and I was against it before with the 3 hours. I mean, I gave it a chance, but I know we have to do something. I look at my wife and when she goes shopping with her, it's an all day affair and they park and they walk. And I think to me, when we do that, we send, when we put a time limit on like that, I think sometimes we send a bad message and maybe I'm because I don't go shopping and I don't care to. I don't get it, but maybe it isn't that big of a deal. And I was just against it because I just felt like it just sends a message to people that we want coming here to park all day long and wander around and go in and out of every store and spend that time. And they may go get their haircut for 2 hours and then go have coffee. And then they may go check shop and then they go have lunch and all that takes 4, 5, 6 hours. Well, now they're going to move their car. And then what if they can't find a parking spot then? I mean, I just think to me, it sends a bad message. I still think we still don't do a good enough job of marketing the fact that this is a pedestrian mall, kind of in a sense. It's a pedestrian based entertainment and retail district. And I think that people understand. I mean, you go down to Valley Junction, you park here, you're going to walk all the way up and you're going to walk all the way down, or you might park in one of the lots behind, but you're not pulling in front of every store, and I don't know. Again, I'm back to, I don't shop. So I'm just thinking logically here and maybe that's part of the problem. So
That's what I was looking up with Valley. I don't think Valley Junction does have a time limit
I don't think
on
so
their
either.
parking.
But not notice the sign.
They also have quite a bit of parking. I mean, it's.
But it's also behind the businesses. It's very similar to how we're set up. And
Yeah.
I think we're doing a good job. And one of the things that we talked about even in that task force is we need some lighting in the alleyways,
Mhm.
make them a
That's
little
fine.
bit more
That's fine.
attractive.
Yeah.
And so
Again, we're-
that's all been, we're
Yep.
getting there. We're just haven't 100% got there yet.
My thinking too is, sorry, Mayor, you finished with that?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, I've been kind of keeping track of the south parking lot since we've got it done, and it's been completely full every day that I've been by there. So, and that's the last 5 days or so. So I don't know, working days, business days, not holidays and everything, but I don't know if that's pulled people back off the square. And as I've driven the square, there's been a few open spaces during the day and during the hours that some of the businesses have been open. So I don't know if that's pulled people off of that and put them back there or not. Have we seen any increase in the parking over here across the street?
I mean, there's definitely people using the lot, but there's spaces available.
Yeah.
There's always spaces available.
Right.
It was full on Sunday.
Yeah.
For breakfast.
Well, yeah. But I think I don't know, I guess I would like to see us do a little better job too of directing or, I know Charlie put addresses on our parking lots. I don't know if that's something that pulls up on Google Maps or whatever.
SAP. And I mean,
Wayfinding.
how do you teach respect? It's where it really comes down
Right,
to.
yeah.
How do you teach and encourage people to be respectful of the businesses and park further away? I know I personally, about the only time I ever park in the square is if I'm going to Savor the Rise, grab a pastry, and I'm out within 5 minutes or less. But you can't encourage that, especially if you're going to bow your back and say, I can be here. The only action that hasn't been taken that could be taken, which I really feel like could take a leadership role in this, is for them to put it in their employee policies. I know if you talk to their county attorney, they can say, you cannot have a law that is for this person, not for that person. And I totally agree with that. As an employer versus employee policies, I can designate, my wife has a little acai bowl place. We rent tenant space very clearly. It tells where the employees can and cannot park in that, and that's required. There's nothing to say as an employee policy that could not be put in. Now, of course, the county can't do that for the state employees, but they could do that for their own, and that would maybe take some pressure off.
It's that pretty much the problem. I'm done dancing around this. We've played nice for too long. It just seems like there's one person that keeps holding this up, and I feel like at some point in time, somebody's gotta call this out, but
It
I'm
is.
more than willing to, but you're a nice person and you always do that. I just think sometimes when a bully gets up, I think you gotta sometimes be bully back to him, but I'm really frustrated with everything I hear. It just comes back from one person because he won't take the leadership to help us and work with us. And I feel like that's an issue. So,
I'm gonna jump in and say, I'm assuming we're talking about the county attorney.
yeah, I mean, he said it earlier. Yeah,
Well, I guess from my perspective, I'd like us to do what we can as far as, I'm gonna stop there so I can go back to John's point too. About parking one spot and walking around the square. Still part of the problem is we still have folks that are my age, fortunately. And, but they've always parked on one side of the square, went to a business, and then they drive over to the other side of the square and park. And John's laughing because I know that's the case. He knows. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, they couldn't walk across the square. And so you still have that little bit of that mentality too. And we're trying to change that, and some of the younger folks that are in the community understand. But I would like to see if we can do a little better job of the wayfinding on some of our parking lots. If we figure out some way we could do that. Yeah,
We have plenty of those that have been put in.
okay.
Not only how to get to them, but designating that they are parking. I think the one thing that we haven't done yet on a city side that we could do is put some videos together.
Yeah.
And making it humorous, but also a little bit shaming.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too, and I will point this out, that when I was doing some stuff with the mayor, put some things out for the June event, it was on the square. There were some county employees that worked in the jail at night, were walking across and went to the west alley because that's where they parked. They didn't park on the square. And I even told them I appreciated them doing that. But obviously the west side is going to be tore up a little bit too. And so until we get the figured out, I think we're a little bit in a flux, I think.
We have not had a full year without construction. And the parking lots will have lights. The alleys that are parallel to the squares is going to get lights for the very first time. And the pedestrian alleys that are perpendicular that you walk to the square are going to have some sort of string lights installed.
I think that's a key point, and I'm glad the mayor brought that up too, because that was things that we heard in that merchants meeting, was the fact that at night, some of the merchants don't like to walk out in the alleys, especially now it gets dark so early, and it will get darker as we get into the year in the winter time here. But I think that is a safety issue in the mind of some of the business owners. So we do need to make sure that.
Well, and I think it's important too, and I'll ask the county to, again, make this statement, is that the parking lots that are on their property outside of their business hours can be utilized by the public. It is a taxpayer building. So
Don't
those,
they have barricades up there?
the gates should be open and after hours, is what the supervisors had committed to me. I haven't seen the gates closed yet. I've seen them open during the day the whole time. So I think that we've got some businesses that could maybe on Saturdays, the hair salons, hopefully they can use those. We shouldn't have any issues.
Yeah, are there signs that say employee?
They're working on getting some new signage for the front of them. It says do not park in there right now.
Yeah,
So they are
that's what I
working on
thought,
that.
so.
Which does not, yep.
Is there any way to implement some kind of additional signage that says all day parking, please utilize parking lots?
Well, I don't think, unless it says it's enforceable, like, it's one of the red and do not.
Right.
Or you're asking for people to show goodwill. And they are going their backs, it's hard. I just
They're
noticed
digging
Amanda
their
testified
heels in the
for two, that-
sand. It's habitual offenders. It's the same people. And they're digging their heels in the sand.
So you think what? I think it's one of it.
yeah.
I do see the repeat offending every day. So, at the end of the day, I think, I love the ideas of education, but I really do feel like the perception of parking has improved in the community. We don't hear about it as much. I know some some merchants certainly do, but I feel like that's improved because we have open parking lots. We're communicating better, we have the signage and everything. But, you know, right in front, like west side, complete west side is filled almost every Monday when I'm here at 8 AM. And so I do really sympathize with our business owners that continue to struggle. And it's because people are unwilling. I've tried to have very pleasant conversations, asking if they'd be willing to park, you know, the 25 yards down the way in the parking lot, and they've told me no. And so I do think or ultimately we have a neighborly issue, and I do not know if it's county or state. I do know Darren shared with me that they very much tried with the state to get things changed there. So if we were to be talking policies, I think that there's a state problem going on, and maybe it's because we haven't elevated it to a level at the state to somebody who cares there, and would sympathize with the economic impact that we have going on here. You said we
Do
have
we know the
taken.
number of state employees?
Ron, did you have a question?
Yeah, do we know the number of state employees that are coming to the Justice Center on a daily basis? Are we talking 2 or 3, or are we talking 20?
I feel at one point in time I heard about 20.
It would be the judges, who else would be state employees?
Like clerk of court, all your clerks would be state employees.
We're gonna
Your
see them every single day.
So Ben, you talked about an upfront cost for one option and another option with a higher end cost on the back end. Do you have a ballpark of what those amounts would be?
I know an employee, you're getting, by the time you got all the benefits and the car and all that kind of thing, you're talking $100,000.
Well, I'm not even talking about an employee. I'm talking like the automated computer system, one where we wouldn't have to have an employee. We would just have a camera system.
You would have to have an employee though, Ron, because somebody would have to enforce it. So you're going to be spending, even if you shared an employee by doing the enforcement, you're still talking 50,000, roughly.
Right, and the thing is, the automated system will make it easier to enforce. It'll give the teeth to the prosecutor. It will allow for the easy proof of, okay, you have a camera that shows their license plate, they're right here, or I have some kind of a sensor in that spot. It says that they were here, they haven't left, and I have something I can prove to the court, to the judge that they haven't moved. It makes it more enforceable. The only thing I'm concerned about is, yeah, you can put signs up like some of the other cities, but they are struggling in enforcing right now. And basically the signs are just a way to scare people away. But if you don't have the teeth behind it, then it gives a bad rap to our police department saying, hey, they don't enforce their own ordinances. Because we gotta give them the tools too.
So if we had a system where we could monitor that 3-hour parking time frame, and those people were ticketed, would that revenue come back to the city to offset the cost of having to hire someone?
It certainly could. Some cities do it as a payback on the actual cost, like of enforcement, like you're saying, either repaying the system or paying for the employee. Others have donated it to some cause or something like that as well, to say that, it's still trying to show that it's philanthropic or beneficial to the community at large.
So
It just seems like we're going to keep having this conversation. The people that haven't shown the courtesy to not park on the square are going to keep parking on the square, and we're going to keep having this conversation. And if we don't, at some point, draw a line in the sand and do something, our business owners are on the square are going to be the ones that fail in the end, because we fail to actually do some action. So I think at some point we're going to have to do something.
I mean,
Putting signs up, telling people where to park is great, but it's not enforceable. So that's just my 2 cents.
it's the same people. I mean, you've heard Amanda say it, I've said it, Steve has, we know what the cars are. We know what offices they work in, and they've dug their heels in the sand because their boss way up has said, you can park wherever you want. But what about like license plate recognition, cameras, that would scan, go through every 3 hours? I mean, I, that they don't have to get out of their car maybe. And I'm sure that's pricey, but we are getting pushback from these merchants who are, you're not listening, we're losing business, we're going to close. We can't, I'm happy to see businesses opening on the square. We have a new one coming up next week. But yeah, like Ron said, we're just gonna keep talking about it.
We are, and I think that's actually part of the problem. The fact that we talk about it so much actually deters people from coming to go shopping on the square because they think, well, I'm not going to go down there and find out. So a lot of the times I've gone around the square or Tuesdays, I've been able to find parking. Tuesdays are the problem day. Self-fulfilling prophecy, when we keep talking about it, it is. And like I said, we haven't had a full year without having it done, and we can create awareness. We haven't done that while we're doing some more research.
I think you're very optimistic, but I think the people who drag their feet in the sand are going to continue to drag their feet in the sand, and we're still gonna get beat up by these merchants saying, you're not listening to us. And we are. I mean, I feel for them.
You know, the sad thing is that we are making an ordinance to literally take care of maybe 6 or 7 people who are repeat offenders on the square parking from the same businesses over and over, which is just causing a problem.
So like maybe 2 weeks of heavy enforcement and then maybe they'll get the point. Problem is our county attorney even gonna prosecute these cases or even care? I mean,
It's the city ordinance.
City.
so then
They have to,
he has to, right? Okay,
Well, we
Well, you do the city
Like-
attorney.
yeah, okay.
Find strong enough. I mean, the thing is, you don't want to make it too painful on the very first offense, but if it's a third offense, you want to make it progressive so that it starts getting real painful.
I'm gonna suggest then that Brian and if the chief would maybe take that into consideration, bring your ordinance to the next study session or something, and so we can take a look at it. I'm kind of with Ron. I think we've talked about this enough. We either need to do something to figure out some way to put some teeth in it for you guys to enforce it. And then we can go from there, but you're right. But that's almost the way it is with any law. You create the law for maybe 8 to 10% of the population, the rest of the people abide by things. So unfortunately, that's kind of where we are at this point in time. So is that a good idea or not? Do you think that's
an issue with that.
Could we look at maybe a license plate recognition?
See what.
There's like I see like Motorola has one, like it's a parking enforcement for this exact thing. I'm sure it's pricey. But then we would have to come up with the money to support that if that's the direction we went.
They're. I don't know how much you want to say here.
Well, it comes down to, we don't want to show all the cards of what the capabilities of the software are and what they aren't, so that we're not.
why don't you give us some ball, 2 things and bring, if you would, please bring back what the cost of an officer / county community develop, whatever it is, cost would be plus car, and then also bring back to us a relatively idea cost of what it would be for license plate recognition or whatever system you think would be workable. Ron, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that, Steve.
I think we are all on board that parking meters are out, right? We do not support those. Especially when they get all electronic and then I have to use my phone. I'm gonna need Jason to get me on.
Knoxville does meters, if you were comparing.
Knoxville
I
has
think
meters.
Pella might too.
Oh.
But I think there's they get a free couple hours.
Well, Pella's parking is like amazing on their square, because I was just down there a few weeks ago.
Knoxville meters.
And
are-
they've got like, there's no meters, but they've got like parking inside the square that's both directions. And then there's also your curb parking that goes around, so.
Protection.
Quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe just taking a quick step back, basic supply and demand, right? You have free parking spaces. So if you just look at any Econ 101, if something is free, the demand is going to be infinite. That's just one fact, right? And we know it's valuable space because there's not enough of it, because it's free. Then the other fact is we have multiple organizations, chamber included, that are trying to make downtown a hot, viable, popping tourism spot. So not only is the parking free, we're actively trying to bring more people to that space and make it even more valuable. So to just rule out parking meters, I feel might be like, yes, we'll fix the problem for those 6 people next week. But in another week, there's gonna be 6 different people. It's just whack-a-mole. So I feel like we just have to take a step back and not reinvent the wheel. Every downtown that is worth going to has parking meters because it's valuable space and we put a value on that. And just because you put parking meters, it doesn't mean that it's automatically charging. You could say the first 30 minutes are free, the first 2 hours are free, on, you could program it however you want. You could do surge pricing, so it's more expensive on days where there's more demand. Like there's so many opportunities with that. So I would just make a pitch for you guys to consider. And I have no dog in this fight. I don't have a business on the square. I go to the square all the time, but downtown has a parking app. The same app works in Iowa City, so you don't even have to download a different app. Works really easily. You have an account, you have your credit card linked to it. You add 25 cents, it gives you like 2 hours or 1 hour, however much it costs. So it doesn't need to be this complicated thing. And I just want to pitch parking meters.
I appreciate you.
Thank you, your
Yeah.
insights.
I didn't think of it that way until you.
You look at it a little bit different things. I mean,
Working out economic laws here.
yeah, I mean,
Right?
And it'll pay for
so
itself.
thankful to have you, Patricia, in town. Thank you.
I just think
I
it'll
mean-
pay for itself eventually. If even 100 grand over 365 days is like 100, 200 bucks a day. You know, that's not a lot of money to earn from parking meters. So even if it doesn't pay for itself, it'll be very cost neutral, I think.
Something to think about. Thank you.
Well, while you're at it, maybe bring something about.
Yep.
Thank you for your help. Thank you, Pritesh and Amanda.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to item 3, discussion regarding any upcoming agenda item within the regular October 16th, 2023 city council meeting at 7 p.m.
I had a couple of questions I asked Ben this morning. I thought maybe it's a good time just to talk about those. And Jackie gave me a great email explaining I don't know if you looked in the claims or not, but in the claims, there's some things to the Iowa great Iowa treasure hunt thing. Jackie, can you explain that just briefly for us?
Sure. The state of Iowa requires us to submit to the Great Iowa Treasure Hunt any accounts payable checks that we've issued to people that haven't been cashed within 3 years. So every June or July, we send out a letter to the people that have a outstanding check of at least 1 year old. We try and get those before we have to send them to the state, and just ask them, if you've lost your check, let us know. We'll reissue it for you. We get a couple of people every year that will respond to that, but most of them don't. As you can see in the claims packet, we have several that are from 2020 when they had signed up to do like COVID classes and stuff during that year. The COVID pandemic canceled those. So we issued refunds at the time and they just haven't cashed their check and they haven't responded in the last 3 years to any of our mailings to reissue them a check.
Do you have any idea how long it takes for that to get on the Great Iowa Treasure Hunt list by chance? So people could go
So
and
we
check?
have to submit it by November 1st of each year.
Uh-huh.
And so once this check is put tomorrow, then it'll be sent to the Great Iowa Treasure Hunt. I don't know how long it takes them to get it on their website.
Okay, thank you. Couple of other things. I had a question about change order to Absolute Concrete on the $58,000, and I think Charlie, Ben, you could maybe talk about
Sure,
that.
that was for contaminated soils, where the Warren County oil was located. It was unknown until we opened up the ground and realized they were contaminated. Those soils needed to be removed pursuant to DNR requirements, and there's certain costs associated with it. It's not just removal, but a special type of removal and relocation.
Right. And then the one on the Industrial Park Plat 3, why don't you just mention that briefly?
Those were three culverts that were kind of buried and weren't marked on our infrastructure plans when that went out for design, and with the weeds and the way that soils were located, those culverts were opened up the ground again.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, Ben was cutting out a little bit. So on those culverts, those had to be filled in?
They weren't known on the plans and weren't there originally until the ground was open and then we realized that they were there. They're filled in.
Two of
So
them
were
are-
they removed? What was
two
the,
of them were
what was the-
repaired, and one of them was capped.
One was capped, two were repaired.
okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Must not have been on the as-built then from the county in 1968. A little while ago, but figured it was on there, right? Thank you, that's.
It's important to note with the council that with only 4 present, that there would need to be 4 votes on all votes tonight. So if there's any other questions or concerns or issues that you would like more time on, would you like us?
I asked these today.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll take a break until 7 o'clock.
Jackie, did I? Mac, President Mac.
I now call to order the October 16th, 2023 City Council meeting. If we'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Beach, here, Parker,
Present.
Selby,
Here.
Richardson,
Present.
Schroeder, Graves, and Mayor Harrison.
present. We'll move on to public comment. Anyone who is wishing to speak, we can come to the lectern. I've got 2 sheets here, so I'll call you guys up and state your name and address. We will begin with Timothy. You want to come up and give us your full name and your address.
Where do I stand here?
Yep, at the lectern, and then it can hear you.
Ready to take this off? Okay, yes, this is more of a question than a comment. This is a question as to whether or not the local area here has any ordinances which protect people from any unfair discrimination or derogatory treatment or anything like that. To be specific, I'll just give you one scenario here. About a month ago, I was at one of your public parks and I just parked my car for some quiet reading. And about 20 yards away, there's your park shelter with park benches, and there was just a group of young people just hanging out, very quiet. Anyway, in pulls this car and a white male comes out and he looks to be about maybe 28 to, 28 and 32, something like that. And he gets out of his car and he starts ranting and really yelling out of his mind at these young people who are minding their own business, and he uses the N-word. So I thought to myself, this is not a big deal because it didn't escalate into anything physical, but there was definitely an exchange of the two groups, And so then he used some words that I'm not going to use here, but then I just drove off and I thought to myself, maybe I should ask to see if the city has some type of local ordinance which would protect individuals' rights, It could have been an anti-Semitic remark. It could have been a remark in someone's disability. It could have been anything. So I thought to myself, maybe if we catch these things when they're small, maybe they'll prevent like large scale riots and vandalism and stuff in the future. So that's my question. Does this locality here have any type of ordinance that protects individual from being unjustly derogatorized or discriminated against based on race or beliefs or anything else? That's my question.
Timothy,
We do, but in a situation like that, that's a matter for the police. Because most of the ordinances aren't going to, may not take that into account, but that's more of a harassment issue. And it's better a matter, I see the chief nodding, so it's better a matter let the police handle. And then if there are any of those ordinances that are implicated by virtue of the use of city property, then we take care of it through the judicial means.
Okay, now my other question is, what if you're a minor? What if you're hanging out with your friends and you happen to be of color and someone uses the N-word at you? And you can't do anything about it because the guy is definitely 10 years or 15 years your senior, and you know what I mean, physically more imposing. And I mean, could that young person just go to the police and say, hey, this dude is discriminating against me, he's calling me the N-word, and he's, you know what I'm saying?
I don't like giving hypothetical, lawyers hate giving hypotheticals.
Yeah.
But again, if they feel threatened, if they feel like intimidated, again, that's a matter for the police.
Okay.
The chief over there shaking his head when our city attorney basically said, you just need to contact the police. I'd have the same thing, same response to the young person. Just hit 911, let the phone and the person hit ranting and yelling, and they'll track you down. Just say you need the police there. Good help.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
thank you. Moving on, we have another one from Susan Glick. Susan, if you'd like to come up.
Good evening. My name's Susan Glick. I live at 511 West Boston here in Indianola. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the compensation package that you guys approved last meeting. And I want to thank you for doing your civic duty and serving in this capacity. There's a lot of people in the community that do many things, whether it's on the school board or election workers or nonprofits, clubs, organizations, kids groups. There's a lot of things that people do to help contribute to the community being the place it is. And I was surprised that nothing had changed, I guess, in 26 years for what you were compensated. I tried to look at the chart about doing this, because this is when I was on the school board, which you don't get any pay on the school board, and you have 2 meetings a month and committees and all kinds of things too. But one of the things they always wanted to bring up and do was, oh, let's look at how much everybody's getting paid in the surrounding or likewise schools, and then that's what we'll base our recommendations on. I don't think that's really the best way to do it, because all that ends up doing is raising the mean or the average that you're dealing with, and then the next person has a higher average to go, and it just keeps climbing right up over the years. I didn't see anything in the information of the packet that showed how many hours are spent on an average by city council members. You know, to know what kind of compensation was needed. I thought, well, maybe I missed something since I didn't come to this last meeting, so I got that on the computer and watched it. I didn't see anything being discussed there either about the time that's put in and what the compensation ought to be. I guess I didn't think that it ought to be maybe all made up at one time. I could have seen doubling it from 1,800 to 3,600 at one step, and then maybe down the road, you know, step it up a little bit more. A big jump all at one time. Like I said, I watched the meeting. I didn't see anything get discussed, so I have no idea how much time you spent in between. I know as a school board member, you spend a lot of time, but you did it because you were interested in it. You wanted to try to help see things improve, and I'm sure that's what you guys, that's what everybody runs for, because that's what they want to do and makes our community better. I also didn't understand the paragraphs about what the next raise was going to be based on every year until name escapes me, but when Martin was meeting, he's called it COLA. Because in this stuff here, it doesn't call it COLA, doesn't even use cost of living. So, but I assume that's kind of what it sounded like. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a big step to go full bore, clear up to 5,900 all at one time, when it's been 1,800. And people for 26 years have been doing their civic duty for that amount. Not that it doesn't need increased, but, and I don't like basing it on what everybody else is doing. That's not the reason for why we should be doing what we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Right. Moving on to item number 5, are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I need a first and second motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ben, you want to give us a brief rundown here?
Sure, we're setting up a public hearing for the vacation of property at East Boston, 1801 East Boston Avenue. We have 4 liquor licenses that are needing approval. We have a pay application for the East Hillcrest Avenue project. We have an agreement with Snyder and Associates for the Willowcraft Avenue alignment study. We're going to change order number 12 in the amount of $58,985 and a pay application of roughly $300,000 in the downtown square reconstruction project. Change order is related to contaminated soils that weren't at the time that the project was bid out. The ground was opened up. We have a resolution, a change order number 4 for $20,327 and a pay application number 7 for $49,000. In the industrial park, that change order was for 3 unknown culverts that were discovered when the ground was open. And one of those was capped and 2 of those were replaced. We have a fiscal year 23 street finance report and approval of urban revitalization designations and salaries.
Questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple of thoughts here. Again, I'm not a real fan of change orders, but the explanations here are sufficient. But I don't know if there's some things we can do to tighten anything up there. There's something about one of those about a MediaCom cable that we've been dealing with since April. Is that correct? If I'm not mistaken.
It doesn't have anything to do with that. It does We have had issues out in the industrial park with trying to get a medium com line. And just in general, we are finding, like most of the municipalities in the state of Iowa, that the utilities have a lot of strength, a lot of power, and they the cities don't have a lot of teeth with their franchise agreements. And so where we have a new member on the Iowa League of Cities and Towns, as board member, I'm gonna try to advocate for some change.
We are meeting tomorrow, so thank you.
Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Selby,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Moving on to council reports, I need a first and second motion. First and second motion to receive and file the September 2023 treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like just, if Doug, I don't know if Doug wants to talk to this or not, or Andy, either one. I know we got 4 accounts in deficit, and I know there's an explanation for this. And so their answer. Yeah. Just for public, so they know what's going on in case they track this.
The 4 funds that are in the negative, mainly the fire department, fire fund. I'll talk about that a little bit later, or next with the quarterly reports. And the pool, that's seasonal. So we had some expenses here in the summer, towards the end of the summer and the beginning of this current fiscal year. We are receiving the larger of 2 payments. One of the large 2 payments of property tax during this current month. So as you know, the fund balance will go down prior to those large payments, and then we'll receive the property tax installments, and then those funds should recover in the next treasury report. The other 2 funds are the Indianola Wellness Campus, which had no fund balance to begin with. So we have anticipated that fund balance would go down a little bit until we start seeing some revenue coming in, and then handling some expenses for that later. And then also for the facility maintenance fund, which is an inter-service fund. We didn't have a fund balance for that to begin that. So we have some expenses going to that, and then we'll be having a transfer either from the IWC or from other funds that use that. Inter-service funds are funds that all the departments use, and money is transferred into that fund from those departments to cover those expenses. And then those funds over time should end up going to zero, because you have money going out and then money coming in that should offset each other. So just to kind of tell you what inter-service fund is.
The main 2 though are the fact that we get a large tax payment in August or in October, and another one in April, is it? If I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So in between those payments,
Right.
the fund balance will go
Right.
down.
Thank
Mayor, Steve, this is Doug Byland, Parks and Recreation Director. The easy answer for the pool is we collect all of our fees in like April, May, and June, and then all our expenses are in July and August. So that'll catch back up again next spring.
Thank you. I'm good.
That's just the way I would answer.
We're always.
Good answer, Doug.
That show. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, moving on, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the fiscal year 24 first quarter report.
Second.
Andy.
Okay, I just wanted to go quickly over these reports. We're gonna be putting these in the council packets on a quarterly basis, just to go over some of the where we're at as far as year to date for receipt of revenue, and then also expenditures. So as it says at the top, 25% year to date, you'll see that most of the revenues are tracking as far as local option sales tax, GEMT, part of the ambulance revenue. That's kind of is accounted for in arrears, because we received the report from the ambulance, our third party billing, our Digitech. They let us know how much of the ambulance billing is GEMT a month or 2 later. So that graph will change later, but you'll see in the next one that the ambulance service fees is tracking above what we had budgeted. And then sanitary sewer tracking a little bit above what we budgeted due to the increase in rates. And then also for road use tax as far as tracking a little bit above what we're tracking. We didn't have any significant changes in Mid-America or in property tax revenue because we don't have the first large payment that comes in October. So we did not include those graphs at this time. And then going into expenses,
I like this chart.
it just lets you know about where we're tracking as far as expenses in each of the areas. Just to give you some reasoning why we set it up this way. In each of the top areas, public safety, public works, culture and rec, and economic development and general government, those are called functions. And so we can't be over budget in a function. So, and then each of the areas underneath add up to that function. So, for example, in public safety, you could be a little bit over budget in fire, but you know, if police is under budget, then that offsets it, and then we can be on budget with that function in public safety. I did include some notes there as to why some of them were over budget. Significant was the K9 was budget a little bit lower, but so we had a little bit of expenses, but that's a new fund. So we're kind of learning what those expenses are. So we're getting caught up on those. Then the fire, we had a larger than anticipated work comp expense in fire because of overtime last year. So we'll have to either amend for that or just for that later. And then as noted earlier, pool and parks, that's mostly a seasonal expense. And economic development and community betterment, we use expenses as far as what the council directed us for distribution, including the chamber distribution of 50,000. So those are all paid out. And then for IT is a little bit higher because we have a new communications director in that, where we had budgeted that underneath the city manager's area. So any questions on any of that?
No, I really like this, Andy. It gives us sort of, I think, a clearer picture in a lot of ways of where the spending is going and where we're a little bit off budget and where we're under budget. And I think this is a great tool for the council to have. So thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Then moving into capital project. We had our industrial park project is almost completed. We anticipated to have a little bit more expenses in the last fiscal year and less this year. So that's a little bit over the 25%, mainly because the project is finishing up. So that's why that is close to being completed at 100%. And then sanitary general operations, we had a larger than anticipated property liability expense for the new sewer plant. So we'll have to take that in account for future budgeting.
The difference in that, Andy, do you 107,000? Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's like a
$70,000. Wow, difference. Yeah.
So who, was that a projection wrong by, them, or we just didn't have enough information yet to have?
We didn't have
idea.
enough information to anticipate what that cost was going to be.
I thank you.
all great, Jared. Grass. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Ron, do you have any questions?
I just echo Steve's comments there. I think it's a great addition to the council's awareness of where we're sitting with all those funds. So thank you, Andy.
You say that'll be quarterly. We'll see that every quarter.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Good.
Perfect, thank you. Not on the agenda is a map report from council. Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Ron, are you an aye there?
Yes, aye.
All right, perfect. Okay. Now we can move on. Moving forward, Steve?
Had a MAC meeting, I apologize for not getting this right off the bat here. It's just a report, so I don't think we're any rules here, but at the MAC meeting on Tuesday, the 10th of October, I zoomed in. We had a presentation by Supervisor Brownell and Helen Eddy of Polk County. They started a program called Talk It Up, Lock It Up. It's about gun safety, firearm safety, and locking up firearms that in the homes. I guess there's been a kind of a spate of things in Polk County with kids having access to some of the weapons and not having those locked up. I don't know if that's something that we might talk about here. I noticed in some of our police reports that we've gotten a number of things lately that seem to have weapons involved, so it's a great program. They're finding it to be fairly positive. We can contact either Helen Eddy with Polk County or Supervisor Brownell if there's some interest in that. There's a movement by Polk County at public libraries and law enforcement to provide free trigger locks. They've had some pretty good success with that, people picking those up. So that's just an item that was on the agenda. Under the 2024 legislative preview, Daniel Stelter is League of Cities, one of the lobbyists for League of Cities. Talked about January 8th, the session starts. Pre-filed legislation will start in December, so they'll probably start seeing some of the pre-filed legislation happen before the session starts. Under the government reorganization, executive order number 10, it reduces the administrative code by half and knocks down the number of different government agencies by about half as well. So that's one of the things that they were looking at, because according to the departments that we pay more in Iowa per capita for the cost of government. So that was kind of one of the things that we're looking at. Taxes, that was part of the discussion too on the future topics. Looks to me like, or what we got out of this conversation was it's going to be more focused on income taxes rather than property or other types of taxes. Although they did say that they will probably take a look at again at the I will, which is the triggering the 3/8 of a penny on the lost money. And so there's still some concern that might be part of the tax discussions this year in the state legislature as well. The rollback issue, that's mostly about where the money was shifted from one group to another, and that's a discussion we can have down the road as well. But that's my report.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, the mayor's report. We had a great Monday last week. We worked this city employees. John was part of my group. We volunteered to help Habitat for Humanity. John was the first person to draw blood all day. So special shout out to Miranda in community development. She is workhorse. If we ever need something built, we'll call Miranda. Mayor's Youth Council had an opportunity to tour the Jesse J Sanctuary, which is a location that any family that is dealing with cancer can come and take a respite and stay there for free. It is right on the outside of Martinsdale, and beautiful location. Family has done a lot. Following that, we had the Pass the Pink event, which was the pink out at the Indianola ADM football game, which ADM took down number 2 in the state, 24-0. Or yeah, that's what I meant. What I said.
You said ADM took it.
ADM, no, Indianola. Yeah, Indianola won that one big. We raised $600 in our 50-50 raffle. An ADM person won the other half, and they took their half. So I know, right? They said if the score was reversed, they would have donated it. But it is going to a family in the community who has a child on Mayor's Youth Council that is dealing with cancer. Warren County Leadership Institute applications are open currently for the class. Trying to see when the deadline is. I'm not quite sure, but it's coming up. It starts January 11th. And on that, I guess, note the playground dedication that the Warren County Leadership Institute did over at the fairgrounds. They put that playground in. There was a dedication last week for that. And that's all I have. All right. Moving on to old business. I need a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance vacating right away for alley between the north side of 1000th block of East Salem Avenue and the south side of 1100 block of East Ashland Avenue. Thank you.
I'll second it just so we can discuss it.
Okay. All right, Charlie?
Well, good evening. Reporting back from the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago on this one. I know council directed us to get some more information from the property owner just on the north side, the Morrows on this one. I'll defer to Mary Erickson on this one. I know she had a conversation with her. I did not. But I'll let you fill that portion. And I think the other portion, excuse me, that we were asked to update on was just to look at the process overall and how we're doing this, how we're dividing alleys as we're going through this. We don't have any change at this point in time. And I don't know if it's necessary or germane to the conversation on this application, but that is something that we will work into our work program here within the coming months and see if we can't revamp that process to kind of better match, I think, council's intention and how it gets used. So and again, Mayor, I don't want to speak for you, but I think the conversation was had with that individual in the north, fully aware that she's giving up her half, and that was completely her intention from the conversation you and I had, but
I'm not sure if that has changed. I think what the issue is there's this tree. And that is a private deal in which I spoke with both Brenda and Nancy on that. We're not involved in. That's between them.
Yep.
I don't know if I have not spoke to either since to see if they have an agreement on that tree. So I don't know. I don't know if you have.
yeah, I haven't seen anything, and the applicant is here this evening too, so I can defer to her as well too, and have her come up and just kind of answer any questions that the council has. But any other questions from me, I'm happy to answer them.
It is the recommendation then of. For you guys to vacate it.
Yep, that was Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. That was our recommendation to the commission, the commission's recommendation to you. From staff standpoint, not too much has changed on this, so that would still continue to be our recommendation. All right, thank you.
Brenda, did you think you wanted to add?
I guess anybody can ask me anything they want. I wasn't here for this whole thing because didn't know there was a thing going on, to be honest. I've heard a lot. I watched the last meeting and was gonna be honest, I was pretty appalled at it because apparently when you say you want to have a big shed to entertain with, and people decide that you're going to build a rental. That's what I was told. And, you know, I sent a letter out. I'm moving from a 3-story house to a little tiny house. I have 3,000 square foot where I currently live, and we're going to go down to 580 square feet. So I kind of need a garage. I kind of need a little room on the side of the garage to entertain my own family. Nothing to do with anything else. Wasn't trying to buffalo anybody on anything. And somebody has made a big to-do of this. And all I was going to do is tell you what I'm doing. Anybody that would think that you would build a rental in a residential area and gonna make a party shed, they might have a problem themselves, not me. So just being honest with everybody. Didn't know any of this was going on. So I want you to know, all I'm trying to do is move to a little tiny house and have a place to have my family come and entertain for the holidays. That's all it's about. And our current place we live, we have a 3-car garage. And we use it all to park. So all I'm trying to do is have a garage to park in, have a place for my family to do entertain with holidays, and live in a little tiny house because I don't like to clean. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't want to clean a big house anymore. I want a little tiny house. So that's all this whole thing is about.
And you've already met with Charlie and you've discussed your like what you can build on there, right? So everyone's aware that Brenda's aware of what she can build. Not build in a mega rental.
I will have to get a variance because my new house is beyond tiny. I mean, it's crazy tiny. And so I'm gonna have to go to the next step of this and get a variance to get a garage that's a little bigger than what I'm allowed because like I said, I don't have any room. I have no storage. I have nothing. And that's not your problem. It's my choice to do this, but that's why we have a city council. And that's why we have variances and that's why we have everything. So I'm assuming everybody understands what this is about. Just because I watched the last meeting and I was not aware there was any problem. So I do apologize. I would have been here if I thought there was a problem, but so I'm here tonight. Just want you to know what I'm trying to do, not trying to do anything stupid, just trying to move over to the other side of town. Any questions?
Let me comment that I felt completely uncomfortable about the whole conversation because it had nothing to do with the vacation in the alleyway. And the only concern I had with the vacation of the alleyway is I didn't like the way our process was set up. I felt like by the city turning back to private owners to make deals of how this whole thing gets done when it should just be everybody gets it and then you guys deal with it on your own in a private matter. And that's the way it should be. And so that was
Exactly.
my only thing. So I had no issues with anything. And again, like I said, I told my colleagues that I was very uncomfortable with the way that conversation went because it had nothing to do with the vacation of the alley. So, but anyway.
You do have all property owners who have signed off on it.
Charlie has I did all the legwork. Everything was done properly. Somebody just got upset. Sorry. That's truly what happened. So,
Well, we appreciate you coming this evening.
and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna just throw this out there. My dad had a heart attack Tuesday. And I've been through ambulance ride to a lifeline to everything. So yeah, it was hard for me to get here tonight, but I wanted to make sure I'm not trying to pull anything. I don't know why anybody would think what they're thinking. Sorry. So next time will be another thing again. Here we go again. So just telling everybody. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Charlie, just one last time, make sure there are no utilities in that we've got to be concerned about. Is that correct?
There's no IMU utilities within there. We're not sure about any of the MediaCom, CenturyLinks, those types of utilities, but we will just put a public utility easement on the back portion there just to be safe on that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty customary with
That's pretty
early vacations.
Okay.
Any other questions? Ron, did you have any questions?
So, yeah, I have one question. So we're going to allow the property owners to either accept that 6 foot or that 12 foot. So basically what I'm saying is that back property line is not going to be a parallel line, right? It's going to be kind of a zigzag line.
Charlie's coming up.
Yeah, and I know I still have it here. I'll pull up my, the exhibit that I gave last time. Yeah, it's not going to be a straight line. There will be a little bit of zigging and zagging going on, back there for sure. And Ron, I'm
That's
assuming.
really my own. That's really my only concern.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you, Ron. But it, it's, if it turned into a private deal, it's gonna end up that way anyway, though.
Right. Brenda's got something.
I will tell everybody, they can go straight across. It don't mean nothing to me. If it makes everybody happy, go straight across. I don't need. It's not a problem. If it makes it easier for everybody else to just do a straight line, I don't need that.
Was that tree just right in that alleyway?
No, the tree is on her property,
Okay.
I think. Charlie could answer.
Yeah, and I'll always caution, don't take these beacon lines.
Yeah.
These lines are off beacon, don't take them to heart because they're never perfect, so.
Ron, I would also suggest to you that in some of the developments from the 1950s, 60s and 70s, there are some irregular lots that have some funky lines. I can think of the lots on North 7th Street that turns into Girard. And if this is what the property owners have agreed to, I'm okay with it too. So that's just a concern. If that's a concern.
And the other thing I would point out too is that, doing it this way too makes it a little bit easier. We don't have to get any surveying done because we can just do it by the quantity of the alley rather than surveys. So we do save a little bit of money that way too, so. But all that being said, I think these are all great suggestions in the conversation that was had last time. We'll take that into consideration and hopefully within the next couple months, maybe during the winter months, when we slow down a little bit, we'll come back to the council with some changes.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Ron?
No, I'm fine, Stephanie. Thank you.
Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Selby,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Right, motion passed. Congratulations, Brenda. You got your, well, we'll read that again, right? Oh. Okay, so now moving on, we need a first and second motion on the second court consideration of an ordinance amending section 1504 and 1704 of the city code of the city of Indianola for the purpose of increasing compensation of the mayor, city council members, and members of the Indianola Municipal Utility Board of Trustees.
Second, I do want to make a comment. I spoke with the IMU board chair and she wanted me to let everyone know, and I talked with City Attorney Doug Fulton. They would rather not accept a rate increase. They are fine with where they're at. They did understand and appreciated that offer, and that in the future, they would, you know, maybe, but right now their timing is not right, and none of them are interested in it, is what Sherwin Smith had asked or had talked to me about. And she said that, so as in talking with Doug, if we made any change by taking out their increase, we would have to refile everything and start the process over. But if we approve it, they can just unanimously not accept it. And it just stays as it is. But the money, in other words, allocation would be I'm kind of guessing this is like the way school boards work, where you get the permission to spend, but you don't have to accept all the money.
So just a point of clarification, and this was something that I misunderstood when presenting to the IMU board as well the other night. Theirs is passed by resolution and was passed by the council last meeting.
Oh, okay.
And so
it's not even
it's not part of this second consideration, because yours and the mayor's, which is 1504 and 1706, just want to make that clarification, are the council and mayor's ordinances. They have to be passed by ordinance. If you would like to bring the IMU back, then we would need to bring it back up.
Okay, I guess we can.
Well, that's where
Yeah, we can talk about that, I guess, and bring it back. I think that makes sense. If they're not interested, then we'll just keep it as is. It's fine with me. I mean, it's their deal. I'm not gonna force anything on somebody, so.
Any other questions? Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Selby,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Moving on to new business, I need a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance amending chapter 2503 of the city code of the city of Indianola, Iowa for the purpose of adding residency requirements.
Move.
Second.
And this goes back, this is, I missed the last meeting, but this goes back to a discussion of the council with regard to our various boards and where board members are required to have residency, whether they're in the city limits themselves, whether they're within the 2-mile radius, what each one the council wanted to bring to board for your consideration. This one is actually for the IMU board, and the board has areas within the city that are in their service area. They have areas outside the city within their service area. The question I think that you directed the council or the staff to bring back was whether or not there's a city residency requirement. I don't think it's a big issue today, but it will grow as the IMU fiber footprint grows.
So the fiber footprint is in constraints like electric is what you're saying.
Sure.
Is water also constrained too, or is it just electric?
Water is
They can't go outside.
fiber right now. You guys are running fiber, I think, south, if I'm not mistaken, across South River, and you run it north out to the wastewater treatment.
It's the city
A little
limits.
bit farther up 65, 60.
Just a little bit.
The city limits will continue to grow outside of the IMU service area, except for fiber. Fiber will grow outside the city's limits as it's made in connections to other municipalities.
And I can appreciate that, but I think, I just truly think that this is one of those things, no different than council. We really don't want somebody else out there.
Planning commission or.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, and I'm not willing to bent on a lot of the others, but this one I'm not. This is a good deal. So
I think historically, and having had family members involved in the city government since 1980s, this historically, you had to be not only a resident, but you also had to be an electric customer. That was one of the things you used to have to be for. It was not an unwritten policy, but that was the policy that they always kind of followed on the council in the 70s and 80s when this split was made. But I think this is a good addition. I think it's fine, and because we've got people that are fiber and water and everything else, so I don't have a problem with that either. But it used to have to be long time ago. It used to have to be an electric customer. Just historical background.
That being the case today, we would exclude significant portions of our city.
We would, and
I
that's
think
why
it
we're going
makes
this direction. Yeah, I have no problem whatsoever. Yeah.
this is good.
Jackie?
Councilmember Beach.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
All right, moving on. I need a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance amending chapter 56 of the city code of the city of Indianola, Iowa for the purpose of amending dangerous or vicious animal definitions. Well, I need a first and second first.
Well, I guess we received an email today that from Councilwoman Beach, that I think, sorry, that's kind of like, I think I would like to make a motion to table this until we can have a further conversation, because she made a lot of good points and some things I would like to consider. I believe Chief Shears, they provided with some good updates, but I think Christina brings in a lot more topic that I would like to discuss myself. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this.
Oh, that as well.
Yep. I had a conversation with Councilmember Beach, 4:30 today.
Good.
But direction then.
Hang on, I have a
You need a
motion.
second.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I understand we're tabling the reading of this. Direction for me to include Councilmember Beach's changes, further discussion at another meeting.
Can we bring it to a study session? I think it's a lot to hash
I
out.
think so. I would like.
I think we could do that at the next study session. And then we can give you better, instead of sending you off and then us picking you apart and sending you back.
Right, yeah, I think a conversation is better, so.
So,
Sorry, don't mean to delay you, but.
Right. Before you go though, I think if there's some things in there that you see some red flags, that's something that we probably, again, Councilmember Beach did a great job, I think, and was outlining some things there too. But if there's something that's a red flag, then that's something we need to talk about as well. But I don't think you have to do it verbatim if it's not something that you got an issue with. So.
Yep, in a cursory read, I don't have any issues. I think there might be a couple redundant things that you wrote that are in another section of this chapter, but I can clean that up.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
We need to vote on this then.
Yes, so the motion is to table the reading of this. Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Moving on to other business, city managers report with Ben Reeves.
Don't have a lot to report. I've been at Iowa League Conference and the ICMA conference with a couple days in between, and then my son's wedding with a couple days in between. Want to extend appreciation to the staff for all their work while I was gone and covering. I did happen to bring some cherries. This time they're not melted in a block like they were when they started, so I'll distribute some tart cherry yogurt covered cherries before the meeting's over. But does council have any questions for me?
Yeah, as long as they're not over $2.99, so we're good.
You have to eat only one.
One.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Item B, I need a first and second motion to enter into closed session in accordance with Iowa Code, section 21.51C, to discuss strategy with legal counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent and where its disclosure would be likely prejudiced or disadvantage the government.
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Parker,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
You need to let the public know that you take
May take action.
action after the closed session.
Oh, yes. If you'd like to stick around, you may take action after we are done.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it's gonna take. Thank you.
Yep, no, that's fine.
So yeah,
A few minutes here.
we'll take, yeah, like 2-minute break.